Where's Jonathan? Oh, okay. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janet Carroll, and I'm happy to have you join us for our session today on turning small donors into monthly givers. Just a quick note about myself. I've been around here a long, long time. I came from working for a nonprofit over 20 years ago, and I've been a trainer for almost 8 years now. So I'm really happy to go on this journey with you today. So, as I said, we're talking about turning our small donors into monthly givers. And I'm going to be piggyback on several things that Erica Wasdorf talked about in the last hour. So, I'm really thrilled to take you on this journey this afternoon. So, I want to start off with a quote that really resonates with me. Recurring donors are your special group of loyal donors. I feel that it really encompasses one of our priorities. As Erica just talked about it just recently, right? Many of you also shared names of these special groups to make your monthly donor programs really resonate and be personal for that special group of that members or club that you all have. So these loyal donors will be there for a long time. Quoting Erica, 5 years on the average. So really something that's important that we really need to focus on. So what is our focus going to be for the next hour or so? Well, we're going to talk about how we get started and how we are going to be setting up our database. This is going to include how we find our target audience, right? We need to identify and qualify our monthly donor prospects. We also need to be setting up our coding scheme. I remember in the last hour, people were asking about how do we set up our codes? What do we do? We're going to indeed address that this afternoon. We all need to talk about communications, right? What are our outreach methods? How will we be communicating? Well, it also includes audit tracking, right? Making sure that we track what we did so we can see later how we really did, the long-term effects of everything that we were doing, from all of our pre-communications to all the results. We need to know what we did so we can track and report on it later, see the effects of all of our efforts. And certainly last but not least for communications is all about showing gratitude. We always need to be grateful for all the support that we do. And last but certainly not least, we know that reporting is very important. We need to know what we did and how did we do. Was it worth each of our different efforts? Should we be changing anything up a bit? So we're going to be focusing on reporting on tasks as well as our financials. So let's get started now about how we're going to find our prospects and our coding schemes, like we just mentioned. So let's start off with narrowing down who our prospects are, right? So we need to identify our prospects. So think about it. What is your goal, right? We need to find our group of repeat donors and ask them to support us over the long haul. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, well, how am I going to get started? What am I going to be doing? Right. So I'm thinking right now of the gift range report, and you're going to see this in live action in just a few minutes here. I like the gift range report because of how it's going to look at my average gift amounts. That's how I'm going to be running it. And I'm going to see how I'm going to segment my donors, because remember, we're looking for our smaller donors to be giving over the long term. So I'm not looking for that major group, if we remember everything that Erica taught us in the last hour. So we're looking for those small donors and seeing the effect over the long term and seeing that annualized figure, which we're going to come back to later today. And once we get the results of that gift range report, we know we need to take a bit of a deeper dive because we need to learn more about these prospects. And I'm going to propose the history list and the export to file options to take those deeper dives, because the more that we know, we're still identifying, and in this course we're also qualifying them at the same time. Because if we find any kind of outliers, we're going to say, well, let's not include it, and maybe it will identify something that's really important that will make us adjust our processes. So once we identify these prospects, part of qualifying them is going to be looking ahead at what we're going to be doing, of course, and how we do it. So when I'm thinking about how I'm going to qualify, I am proposing how we are going to be customizing all the messages that are going to be going out to our prospects. So I'm thinking for myself of how we can be separating out the active donors from our lapsed donors. Why would you even think about this? Well, I'm thinking long term here, and I'm thinking that my active donors, when I ask them to become monthly donors, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about retaining my donors. And when lapsed donors come to mind, the word reactivated is in the back of my mind. How about yours? Right? You might have different ways to qualify different groups. But in my mind, I'm thinking about this as how some of the one way to do it, of course, different ways to reach out to everybody. So let me jump into the database right now, and I'm going to show you the gift range report. So let's come over here to Donor Perfect. And here I am in the reports and the report center. And here's my gift range report. And the first thing I'm going to do is I want to look at my donors here based on the average gift amount. And yes, I've already set up my splits, but this is something for you to customize. Remember before I said that I wanted to reach out to my repeat donors. And that's important because somebody that is given only one time, well, we don't know whether they're going to be committed to us. But if somebody already crossed that barrier there, that threshold of giving a second time, I want to reach out to those. So I'm going to come in here, and in my folder here, I have a monthly giving program filter folder, and I already have a filter set up for repeat donors, those who have lifetime given more than one gift. Let's take a look. I have one donor who has given in the average range between under $10, between $1 and $9.99. I'm not so interested there, but I'm looking at my next two groups, 10 to $24.99 and 25 to $49.99. So I'm thinking that that is my target group, basically $10 to $50. Remember, I just also spoke about qualifying my prospects. Well, I need to send out my custom messages, and I need a filter to get that targeted group. So let me show you a couple of filters that I set up. So here in my filter folder, again, I'm going to come down to my monthly giving program. And you can see here that I have a few targeted lists. I have targeted 1, 2, and 3. Let me show you a couple of them. First, my active donors. So I'm going to come back to that report that I ran, that gift range report, and here's my average amount between $10 and $50. I have my repeat donors, and I also, for my active group, I said that their last gift had to have been since January 1st of last year. To me, that's my definition of active. Yours might be different. I'm going to cancel out of here and just show you one of my lapsed donors, the filters. And this only difference here is the last time that they gave. And in this case, I'm calling it that they're lapsed 1 to 2 years. And what I have here, I have that date range of January to December for 2021. So everything else is the same, the average gift and the fact that they are repeat donors. So pretty important there. So let's come back to our presentation, and let's now go back to where we started from and say, you know what, we need to lay the groundwork. We were talking about the fields that we might be using to track all of our monthly giving. We all know that when something happens, if we document it, we're going to be in good shape. So I'm thinking specifically about the campaign, the solicitation, and the sub-solicitation fields, right? When we're reaching out to our donors and prospects to ask them to join us on our journey for being a monthly donor, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I remember to keep in mind the structure of your campaign solicitation and sub-solicitation codes, right? You want to make sure that your monthly giving program is going to fit into the mold that you have already set up within your organization for each of these three fields, right? We need to design the data entry, right? Where are you going to designate these facts, right? Be sure to set up all the codes down to all the different details. So we want to remind ourselves that putting our details in the same place all the time means that we know where to go find the data later on. And of course, that's going to parlay into the reports that you're going to be running later on as well. So do you remember when Erica said that your monthly donors give the most money as a group? Wow, we need the coding in place really to make be able to run these reports easily. So let's take a look at the coding scheme that I'm going to use to document my monthly giving program, remembering that yours might be a little bit different. For my monthly giving program, I am raising money for the food pantry. We can see that here in the general ledger field. Look at what I'm doing. My big picture, my campaign field is simply my monthly giving program. My solicitation gets a little bit more specific. For me, I'm now working on my monthly giving 2023. You're going to see later on that I have a monthly giving 2022 and a monthly giving 2021. For this, my sub solicitation, I'm going down one level more detailed. Remember, I had my active, my lapse 1 to 2 years, and my lapse 2 to 3 years. So this level of detail is here in the sub solicitation field. We always remember data in, data out. So let's get the data in. So later on, we're going to see how our monthly giving program is doing. So once the data is in, we're going to now later on, of course, see it in reports. This is the gift comparison by time period report, one of my longtime go-to reports. I like the flexibility in using it. And you can see here on the left, I did this by solicitation code. I have had monthly giving programs for the last 3 years. And of course, once they give, we always want them to keep on giving. So I still have some donations from 2 years ago when I was just getting started. My monthly giving program that was for the donors that started last year, they are still giving. I know my June numbers, of course, in this column is going to be increasing. It's still early in the month. And look at this already for monthly giving 2023. I'm doing nicely so far, and I'm going to expect all of that to continue. So again, this is at that level, the higher level for the entire monthly giving program that I'm running this year. Going down a little bit more, some might say into the weeds, this is now my sub-solicitation analysis. I ran this based on my monthly giving 2023. And look at this, I have results of my active, my lapsed 1 to 2 years, and my lapsed 2 to 3 years. Again, these details are here. Why? Because I set up and I'm using my coding schemes. So what about communications, right? We engage everyone to get them excited about our passion for your organization's causes. We want them to join us with the same enthusiasm and passion that we have. So we need to now talk about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and of course, the all-important documentation. So when I'm thinking now about the communication content, I'm thinking about how we have our custom messages, right? Think about your messages. Do you have a catchy name, right, to provide that sense of exclusivity for all of these program participants or potential, participants? This is what we need. Now, my group name, you're going to see a little in just a few moments, is called the Grocery Bag Club. I need to promote all of this within my communications, right? In my case, I have my active versus lapsed all sending out the right messages for them to join my Grocery Bag Club. They've already donated to me in the past. I'm asking them to either continue or to come back and join the club. Well, how are we going to be doing this, right? What methods are we going to be using? Well, we all know that we focus on letters and emails for sure, right? We need to make sure that whatever we do, we are documenting what we're doing. So with letters, many of you might already be familiar with the Update Contact Manager within our mail merge screen. I'm going to point that out in just a little bit, right? When it's going out by email, are you using Constant Contact? Is it integrated with Donor Perfect? What if you're using another email marketing company? No problem. We can help you export out the data so that you can then send it out to that email marketing company to get those emails out, right? Also, don't forget that QR code. Everybody's using it these days. Let's not miss the boat on this one. Put it on both your email and your letters. It's going to take that donor right to your forms. Make it really easy for everybody to access that form. Speaking of forms, I want to now show you what my form looks like and point out some of the factors that we want to focus on here. You can see that I'm raising money for the food pantry. This is the name of my business, but here now is the name of my club, my monthly giving program. Okay. Well, I want to point out a few things that are really important to take a deep dive into. Number one, we are only here asking for monthly giving. There's no choice here. We're doing specific outreaches right now for monthly giving. For a regular donation form, different story. But this is now the monthly giving appeal, so there's no choice here. Every donation is going to be on a monthly basis. Notice I also have impact statements. Look at this. Explanations on what that dollar amount can do for the beneficiaries. We want those donors to know that impact, right, of the dollar amount that they're considering giving. And look at this. I have one highlighted already. This is my default amount. So take advantage of that. As a donor, your eyes are going to be focused right on that dollar amount and that impact statement. So I'm going to be looking and assessing that, and then I'll be able to adjust what I feel that I can afford, how much I could support this effort, in my case, for that grocery bag club. And of course, don't forget what we just talked about on that last slide, all the codes. Make sure that you're back behind the scenes, that backup is all there, the setup for the codes and all of the fields your way, right? Make sure that your automated emails are set up exactly as you want it, because that immediate recognition that the payment was received, okay? However you wanted to approach your gratitude emails, that I like to call it. So let's come back here and let's continue and now talk about some documentation. We all know that everything that we do needs to be documented, right? We talked about the update contact manager for the outgoing solicitations when you're doing it by letters. The emails with our integration with Constant Contact, the default is indeed to create that documentation right in the contact transactions, right? If your organization's protocol includes phone calls or personal notes for follow-ups, make sure you document that as well. So let me take you there. Let me show you what that documentation looks like, right, as we are tracking tasks, all of these follow-ups, all of these, the touch points, as we all like to call them. Right. This is an example of a contact transaction. Notice that I have a task due on Friday. It says that I need to send a personal note that is part of my monthly giving 2023. Notice the mailing code here is the same as my solicitation code on the gift screen. Nice, not so coincidental. It was planned purposely there. It is assigned to me and a few notes about what I need to do when I am writing that personal note. So my notes are going to help me accomplish that task a bit faster. Remember, whatever you put in here is going to come out later on when we get to the reporting. So let's get these details documented. Well, nothing is ever complete except before we say thank you. And even after we do that, it is, of course, still not complete. So we need to certainly receipt for the promise, right? We need to send out that official receipt thanking them for the promise and that first payment on the pledge. Of course, further receipting is between you and the donor, whether the donor wants it every month or whether the donor might say, just send it at the end of the year. We need to always show that you care, that we care as the nonprofit, right? Make those personal outreaches, right? Maybe it's going to be by the board member or somebody else. Phone call, written note, whatever you're doing, we need to document, like we showed you just a moment ago with a contact transaction. Um, Quoting somebody that I listened to about an hour and a half ago, Sabina Walker Hernandez, she mentioned earlier, for these personal outreaches, one option is to send something small yet impactful that's representative of your mission. But don't make this one swag. That's for another time. But when you do this, document that as well, because yes, this is indeed a personal outreach. Okay. And that's going to make a difference. And of course, don't forget continued communication. What always comes back to me is I don't want our donors to feel like that ATM machine. I can't count how many times I've heard that in the last 2 days, right? We don't want our donors to feel like that. So we need to basically keep them engaged. Stewardship is so, so important. Everybody's been talking about that as well, right? Send them those notes. Ask them to join you at events. See if they'd like to volunteer with you. Whatever it might be doing, there's a lot that you can offer. So keep that communication lines going. Document what you're doing. Okay, let me take a moment and show you where in the database we can find some of these options that we just talked about. So the first place I'm going to just remind you here is the receipt screen. And then when I come over to mailings, I have the constant contact email. So of course, come here if you have that integrated. And if not, please reach out to our support team or your trainer. We'll help you with that. And when we come down here to mail merge, right, this is where we're going to get our letters out and merged, or we can do that export to send to that other email marketing company. I want to point out one other option, which is really nice, very convenient. Again, it's going to create its own touch point. So if you're going to be sending out an email and it's going to be personalized, in this case, right to Betsy Ross, on the main screen, we have an option that says send email, and it could be from your default email program. So more about how to do that is in one of my handouts that you can get from this session. So all the details there. So that's how we're going to make sure that we are tracking everything that we do. So what about reporting on our success? Well, nothing comes without all the checks and balances. We know that everybody's going to be asking us, how did we do? And all the little touch points that we do, did it make a difference? Well, I want to say yes. I really want to say yes. But then I'm going to be asking, what did we do? And how much did we do? And how many people did it? What did it really take? Right? So we need to think about all this. Let's focus here on all of the goals. We're going to start off with our touch points. Okay, so we know that we've entered all of our data in our contact transactions. Well, we have a few standard contact management reports. I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to show you some of those in just a few minutes. And we also have the ability to say, you know what, I want something custom. I love those standard reports, but you know what? I want to look at my data a different way, or the old adage, my boss wants something, or the board wants to see something, the committee wants the data organized a certain way. Well, I'm going to show you what I have created here as well. So let's take a look first at the standard reports. So if you go to the home page, the database knows who you are that's logged in. So when you are on the home page in this schedule donor outreach, you're going to see what tasks are yours that are due either past due, due today, or due in 7 days, right? So this is super nice. You can access the transactions right here. You can view the details, write that note, make that phone call, whatever it might be. And if you might say, oh, well, you know what? I did it yesterday. I even documented, I forgot to put in the completed date. You can come in here and just mark it as done, or we can view the details, go into edit mode, and literally finish it up there. So this is your own task management by default, nobody else's. In our report center, we have a couple of reports as well. This one is our contact listing report, where we have the ability to see lots of details all at the same time. And a side note here, one that I love is that all of these columns are clickable to sort. So right, it comes out in due date order, but if you wanted to organize it by activity or who is responsible for or assigned to, it's all here. So I love to see all the details. I ran this example here with what was still open, not yet completed, but you do have that as an option. You can also, as an option, set a filter to say, I only want it for my monthly giving program. So somebody could just focus on that. So it's all a matter of lots of options available to you. See what you need in that particular moment. The other report in the report center is our contact calendar. Organized, as you can imagine, by due date. That's the date of each of these calendar blocks. Super nice, right? You get to, like on the other report, you can also show it only for your monthly giving. You could run it for yourself like I did. You could run it on selected staff. So you make the calendar the way that you need it, and it's going to be helpful just to give that big picture. Wow, I'm really busy next week, not as busy this week. Let me just maybe get some of these phone calls or maybe make some of these notes and get them out of the way a little bit faster. So now that we showed you all of the standard reports, what I want to do now is come into the report center here, and I'm going to show you one of my easy reports that I set up. So I actually set up two reports. I ran my monthly giving touch points by activity for only those that are still open, okay, that I have not yet accomplished, I still have yet to do. And the other one I did by solicitor, and then the activity, which is by solicitor as well. I decided that I wanted to see what was open and closed in this report. Gives me a big sense of what I've done, what I still need to do. So what I'm going to look here, and yes, I'm including everyone that was marked, even if they're marked and do not send mail, they're part of my monthly giving program, so I need to include them. My filter is all about by solicitor. So I'm saying that the solicitor is not blank, that it's filled in, and I only wanted my due dates where it's in 2023. So that's what I did for right now. And what I also set it up is I set it up based on my activity and by my contact screen. I did it by my mailing codes that represents for me all three of my segments. I have, for me, remember, I have my active and I have two lapsed. So I have three groups there. So I'm going to run my report now. And here I have, in my report here, I have two solicitors listed, and they're broken down within the solicitor by each of the different activities. And I can see when it was due and whether it was finished or not. So I can look in that completed column, right, and see what's going on. What have I done? Or what has this person, in this case, Amanda and Sean, what have they done? What is still open left to do? So again, you get to design your report. What is it that you need to do, right? And design your report if you need. So let's come back here and continue with the financials that I'm sure many of you have been waiting anxiously to see. So the first couple of reports here that I want to point out, the solicitation and the sub-solicitation analyses, right? They are big picture reports, and the sub-solicitations more in the weeds, right? I'm not running anything by campaign, but I certainly want to at another time, just not the focus in this moment, because I want to get down to this year at the solicitation analysis and my three targeted groups in my particular club, grocery bag club, at the sub-solicitation analysis level. So I want to then mention the gift pledge detail report. And this is donor by donor. And yes, you could run this at the solicitation level or the sub-solicitation level. I prefer here to run it at the sub-solicitation level so I can see donor by donor within each of my groups. And it's simply built that way. I can see how much money has already come in the door. Fabulous report. The comprehensive donor revenue analysis takes me to a different place. It puts the big picture together, and it then takes a look at a couple of groups that we've been alluding to, Erica's session, and again now, that active group of donors that I'm looking at, I'm trying to retain them. My lapsed donors, my goal is to reactivate them. Okay, so my comprehensive donor revenue analysis report literally shows me that as line items. And that is just what I want to see, because those big picture line items in the solicitation analysis was really nice. That's just one big number. Now I'm going to see, well, how did I do it between between the retain and that reactivating? So all really good. What are we focused on today again, right? Monthly giving. We have two particular reports now that I want to focus in, and we're going to do this live. Our monthly giving report in the report center and the monthly giving dashboard. So in case you haven't been there, we're going to take you there now. So I'm going to come first into the report center, right? I'm going to come into reports and the report center. And I want to get to my monthly giving report. So here it is. We're leaving the date range open because I don't want to be concerned about my date range right now. What I do want to be concerned, of course, is my monthly giving 2023 program. So I'm going to clear my values in my sidebar. I'm going to remove if there's a filter here, and I'm going to come down here into my solicitation code in my sidebar, and I'm going to add my monthly giving 2023. So there we go. And this report is going to show me donor by donor. I get to see when they in their commitment when they were starting, right? The date here is the date of the promise. Often that is the same date as they're starting. If they went to your online form, right? The commitment in the online form makes the commitment date the same as the start date. So I get to see how much they're giving on each of their monthly payments in this case, right? The $0 is a reminder that it's open-ended. And I know what they've paid to date, but I'm going to piggyback onto what Erica was talking about earlier about that annualized value. So important. It is right here. And this group right now, when we're just getting started in our monthly giving 2023 program, and I already have an annualized value of $3,900. So I'm ready to keep on going, kicking and going strong. So this we see all of the donor by donor. Now it's time to come to the dashboard. And when I come to the dashboard, I'm going to come over here to the right. We have 3 dashboards, remember. So the monthly giving dashboard, if you haven't been here, is the one on the right. These are the big picture. You know, it's not donor by donor like we just saw. So I get to see the full 12 months before and the current month that we're in. So super nice. I see the dollars that came in, and now I get the donor count. So lots to look at here. Really, we're remembering that we're identifying our monthly donors. Here we're doing it in dollars total. The other report was donor by donor. So let's come back and just review a few things, right? Some best practices. We all need to, if we stick with best practices, we know we're going on the right path. So we talked before about setting up some good coding schemes, right? We have coding schemes in 2 different areas that we talked about today, the contact screen and our gift and pledge screens. So super important. We need all the details on our contact screen, details for managing all of our tasks. The gift and pledge, where are the details? What effort did we make? What group were they in? What targeted group were they in that you sent out, and hopefully documented that along the way. Of course, we have our communications. Custom messages for each targeted group. Our donors have to feel that we know about them, that we know them. So we need to make sure that the messages that we send to them are appropriate. So we need to make sure that we're documenting it for later on, because, you know, we're going to come back and report on it like we just saw. Well, what about those online forms, right? We have 2 parts that we need to think about. The behind the scenes setup, right? What's going into the form, right? All the codes that we just talked about a minute ago, as well as the letter of gratitude, that's that automated email that's going to be associated with it. What about what's donor facing, right? We have our impact statements. Really make a POW, make a statement for what those dollars that you're asking for the donors to give, what can it do, right? They want to know how the help that they're making a difference. And that's going to reach into their heart. It's going to give them that warm and fuzzy feeling that they themselves are doing some good. And again, that automated gratitude emails, that they're going to be getting that email from you. So it's worth spending that time setting it up well. So in conclusion, a few points to remember, some takeaways as I like to think about it. Know your target audience. Remember, I started off with average gift ranges, so I go for that. I start with that targeted group, right? I don't want to just be going around and just taking shots in the dark. I know that we're looking, in this case, always for my small donors. I found my $10 to $50 is a nice group for me to get started. And of course, within that, segment your donors, right? What messages are you going to be giving? Okay, how are you going to be segmenting? I used Active and Lapsed. What are you going to be using? Do you have similar groups? Do you have current and new monthly donors? Right? Do you have monthly donors that dropped out a while ago that you're trying to reactivate as monthly donors? Right? So we need to track our details. There's no doubt about it. We need to have good coding schemes. We've been talking about that all along. What about the go-to reports? I mentioned a few here, right? When you find them, right, whether they are task or financial oriented, when you find them, you can gold star them within the report center, or you can go to the next step and put them on your personal dashboard and make them bookmarked reports so you can one-click them ready to go whenever you need them. So I want to make one last comment. We do have a handout today. In addition to this, we have a handout that has knowledge-based articles and webinars that are related to this entire presentation. So I hope that you have a lot of takeaways and can take that to the next step. So I'd love to be able to answer any questions that you may have. So I'm not sure if Jonathan is there. Otherwise, I think I will take a look in the Q&A. Oh, Lori, you're there. Okay. Anything that jumps out at you? All right, I will take a look. Okay. Let me see if, based on some upvotes here, Julie asked if a donor starts in 2022 as a monthly donor and continues to donate into 2023, do you change them to a 2023 monthly donor? How would you recommend to deal with donors over multiple years? Well, Julie, when I'm thinking about it, I'm going to stay in Donor Perfect while I'm talking here, and let's come into, let me see. That gift comparison by time period, actually, let me come in here and let me see. Before I did, when I ran my report earlier, I did an April 1st, right? I did April 1st through June. So my goal here is to see the results of all of my efforts. So when I'm thinking about all of this, and I apologize just taking the time here, I'm running my report. Oh, this should have been, whoops, 4/1/23. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm running my report and I want to see the effects of all of my monthly giving. Okay. And what's really nice, whoops, gift comparison. I didn't separate it out. Whoops, my apologies here. I want only my three monthly giving. Sorry about that. And I think I might be best. Whoops, I was going to say not demonstrating, but let me come in here and show you real quick. I have my 3 monthly giving. I have one that's current. I'm going to very quickly come in here and find my monthly giving for 2021, 2022, and 2023. So the purpose of all of this really is to say, I get to see the results of everything that I'm doing right now and the effects of what I'm still getting, what's still getting paid for a year later. So here I am now in June of 2023, and look at this. I'm still getting payments. So far, I've got 36 payments, right, that came in from last year's monthly giving program. So if we set up this report, I get to see the effects and the long-lasting effects of this right here. So I would recommend, let's keep it from where it originated, because that's really the effort that you made. So I hope that answers your question. Jonathan, are you going to throw me some questions here?
Hi, Janet. Can you
I can't hear you.
Oh, you cannot. Okay. Thank you, everyone, so much for today.
So my apologies, Jonathan. Let me come in here and see what other questions we have. What percent of monthly donors? This is from Elizabeth. What percent of most monthly donors do you lose when their credit cards expire? Any strategies to encourage them to give a new card number? Well, Elizabeth, my recommendation is to join us. Make sure the account updater is live within your SafeSave gateway. If you're processing within the SafeSave gateway and you have account updater activated, okay, if it's already turned on, then it's going to update it for you. So we're not going to be worrying about any expired credit cards. In addition to that, you might have an alert up here by that bell, and if that alert is turned on about a pending expired credit cards, it's going to give you notice. So if you see a little red badge up here by that bell, please click on it and take a look. If not, please have somebody go into user management for you and check your alerts and make sure that at least there's 1 or 2 people signed up to be alerted for those expiring credit cards. Lori, can you, do you want to throw me some questions?
We're going to try, but can you hear me? Nope. Okay.
Sorry about that. Let me continue and read some more questions. Joelle is asking, what other charts could be added to the monthly giving dashboard? Well, at this time, Joelle, all we have are the dashboard is already built as is. So right now, there's nothing to add to that monthly giving dashboard. Okay, there's other reports you can add to the other dashboards, but the monthly giving dashboard is it. So if you find reports, like I mentioned before, that you want to run for yourself, create them as easy reports, bookmark them to your personal dashboards. You can just run them with one click. Stephanie is asking, is there an easy way to clean up and organize the codes for these 3 fields of campaign, solicitation, and sub-solicitation? As Jonathan replied, I think this is just a great question for everybody. It really depends on the current setup of all of your codes. So you have to really go back and say, in the organization, what's going on? What's the big picture like? I always like to talk about a big triangle. Big picture, like really big picture, is at the top. Campaign fields in the middle, like middle of the way, like I have here my monthly giving for each year. That's my solicitations. Down at the bottom in the weeds, they're really wide, like a lot of places to have all the details. I like to think about that as my sub-solicitation codes. For me, remember, I have that my active, my lapsed 1 to 2, and my lapsed 2 to 3 years. So think about the big structure, apples to apples, what's going to go in each of these fields. So reach out to support, reach out to your trainer. We have some we have some data cleanup. We have database maintenance webinar series, and I believe that's coming up in the next month or 2. So please check our webinar schedule for that. So I know that will help you. Let's see. Do we have any suggestions from Kelly? Do you have any suggestions for people who are wanting monthly donors for multiple programs that you were looking to get monthly donations for? We don't necessarily want all of our money, our monthly giving, to go to one program that we have at our community center. Well, the big question here, Kelly, and this is kind of a general question and answer as well. Are we asking for somebody to basically allocate their monthly giving? So they're giving, let's say, $50, and maybe $30 goes to one and 10 to another and 10 to another. Do we have that going on, or are we saying that really different kinds of programs? I know that I've worked with some Donor Perfect users over time where they're supporting children in underdeveloped countries, and maybe some goes to their schooling, some goes to their food program at the school, some goes for books and supplies. So I've seen where the donors have given and allocated for a few different purposes. So again, it's all a matter of what you're doing and how you're doing it. Looks like we have a few more minutes. Let me see what other questions we have here. Rebecca is asking, how do we get to that contact management report and the calendar? That's right here. So Rebecca, come into reports and report center. And if you want to take a quick dive, well, you can do 2 things right here. In the search, just type in contact, right? And you might get reminded here about the contact calendar and contact listing. Okay. The other thing is we know it's not financial, and this is not quite what's in the focus of the listing report. So if you remember that, what the purposes of each of these folders is, come into other reports. And here I have my calendar and I have my listing right here. nice reports. Join us for our contact management and DP webinar, and you'll learn all about it, more details. Laura is asking, how do you know how often the donor wants to receive a receipt? Is there a box on the online form? Well, I'm going to say that we don't typically ask. Remember, we're trying to keep the forms short. So maybe in another communication, you might have, how often would you like to get, how often would you like to get a receipt? Okay. Maybe after the first one. Remember, there's going to be communications. We can't leave our monthly donors again thinking that all we want is the money, so we're going to be doing outreaches. So maybe on one of those outreaches you make a plan that on certain outreaches, right, that we're going to be asking, and then we could document it in their record. That's a great question, because remember, we want to keep everybody happy. We don't want to send them a piece of paper every month and have them toss it or put in a file that they forget about. Okay. And if they get an email every month, well, they might not be happy about more and more in their inbox, right, if it's the same thing with a different date. So ask them what they prefer. I think that's a great idea. Gabby is asking, can different donors see different pre-selected amounts? So the way that Donor Perfect works right now, the answer is no. We have to send them to the form, right? And I still have my form up here. Everybody that has that link is going to get this particular form. And we have the choices here. If you need to have a couple of different forms for different purposes and have maybe your smaller donors, maybe you are going to segment out into different groups, maybe by different levels, or maybe by different financial levels within that group of small donors. So maybe my 10 to 50 will get this form, and maybe I'm going to go up a little bit higher, right? And maybe do my 50 to 75, and maybe they're going to have a different form with a different set of pre-selected amounts right here. Of course, with my default values, and of course, with my coding behind the scenes about what group it was. Okay, so I think it's a great idea. It's all a matter of how do we want to do it? Okay, what's important to you in your setup, right? How the big picture, how are we breaking it down? What targeted groups do you have? Looks like we might have time for one more question here. Nicole is asking, does the DP QR code track who scanned it, even if they didn't make a donation? If so, where would that information be found? Right now, that QR code, it simply opens up the form. So I don't believe that it does. I'm not familiar if there's any analytics behind there. I would say reach out to the support team. They may know more about that. Okay, I know that some of our forms our classic forms have some analytics behind the scenes. I'm not sure if this particular form, this is our new form, I'm not sure if this has the analytics yet, or is that's going to be coming in the future. So I think we are out of time for today. I just want to be able to thank everybody and best wishes for a successful monthly giving program. Thank you, Erica, for giving that fabulous introduction and laying the groundwork for how we can do it within our Donor Perfect database. So take care and have a great day and a great successful monthly giving campaign, everybody.